The point is you have these 3 levels. Level 1 is a tweet. So the tweet goes out, and then you're doing a tweet not every day, but like every 2 or 3 days. Tweet every 2 or 3 days. Then you see for each tweet how well does it do. Then based on what the tweet's talking about, what's the topic, you say, okay, this tweet did really, really well. So got a lot of views, got a lot of comments, engagement, likes, etc., etc. You say, okay, that tweet did really, really well. I'm going to turn whatever the topic of that tweet is into a blog article. There. And then, if the blog article gets lots and lots of views, and people are commenting on the blog article and sharing it and stuff, then that becomes a course, or like a webinar, or a blah, blah, blah. That's the content strategy.
That's
like
really interesting.
You go in layers like that. So, the question is, for Tela, for example, what does the content strategy look like if we start from a tweet?
That's actually that's in a sense the reverse order to the way I was doing things and the way I'd thought of doing things. Okay. So I'd assumed I would come up with a thought, note it down, write an article about it, develop the idea, and then dice it up into piecemeal items. So I'd take an article, 1,500 words, and turn bits of it into tweets, or 2-minute videos, or shorts, or what we were doing before was record a long podcast about it and then piece that into shorts, which hasn't been working great, and it's a lot of work. But that suggests that it might be a better strategy to the idea that I have for an article, tweet that. Or put that into a 30-second video, where I just explain the thought in 30 seconds, or I pull in threads, and if that has engagement, then I put in the work.
Exactly. So shorts become longer videos if they get engagement.
If we want mass appeal, if we want to try to reach as many people as possible, and then try and find our audience, then maybe it's a layered system. So I described earlier something like you have either tweets or short form content or shorts or some sort of snappy content that people can come across, not invest too much time in engaging with, find it interesting, and maybe stick around. So like and subscribe or follow on Twitter. Second layer would be you find that content engaging, you engage with long form content. So there's a podcast or there's articles. And if you've encountered those, then there's links to join, say, a forum. And then in the forum, it's something like the model we have set up right now, which is anyone can be a member, but the only way to engage, to write, to post, is to contact one of the administrators through Tela. And maybe we put something into place so that if you've been around for long enough, or if you've proven yourself and maybe there's a paywall, then you have administrative privileges of some kind.
I'd be happy to copy existing approaches and have a Discord that can only be accessed by subscribers. And then having a channel in that Discord, which is the primary forum, where you can only post through Tela. And in fact, there might be a way to do this all with API tools, so that on Tela you write a message, and that then gets posted to that specific Discord channel. So you could write to a bot on Tela.
Yes, that would be the ideal situation. Content to engage with, and then once you've engaged with it, we provide ways to engage further. So we say, okay, you like the content, you want to comment, you want to say something, you want to have your say on this comment, you want to say it's wrong, you want to say it's right, you want to say whatever. You can engage. How do you engage? You engage by going to this Discord channel, you engage by going to this Telegram channel, and you are sort of funneled through Tela to the channel to let you engage.
In a sense, what we're trying to counter is the current best system, which is which is cutting through the noise. The current best system is, here's the problem, here's something we could do about it, pay me $20 a month.
Okay, I got something here. When you comment on YouTube, you're actually interacting with a kind of contract where you have a guarantee based on experience and based on the experience of everyone else around you that if you enter text in that box and click submit, it will work. The problem that we have faced with Tela and the problem with saying contact me here so that I can use it in a video is the contract is not automated. It doesn't have the same degree of trust.
Yeah.
So the more that a new messaging system can head towards a protocol where the result is guaranteed in some way, the indicators are there, so that the person, yes, you're interacting with another person, but right that second, you're interacting with a system. I think that's why you need two separate channels on a Discord. One is the lunchroom food fight, no rules, no moderation, or very little. And the second is the high signal channel. So the first channel acts as the engagement sink, which everyone needs, which is to get people to even notice that you exist.
Yeah.
The second is to have a publicly visible channel that parallels it where the actual discussion takes place.
Yeah.
So I think in the current meta, you absolutely have to have the engagement farming. All that we're trying to add is the high signal companion channel. But I don't think the solution is to ignore the meta and say, no, we will only do the companion channel. And I think that's the mistake we've been making.
We have a garden, a circular garden with rings. And the rings are levels of commitment.
Yeah.
Beyond each one is a new contract that you enter into. The outer ring, there is close to no contract. There is a contract, you said, with YouTube or any other public forum. When you comment, you know that your comment gets stored, it's displayed to other users. This is the contract you enter into. You know that if you perform this action, this result will happen. And that's a public forum. And that's the first ring. That's the outer ring. Then if you go to the next ring in, now you're a subscriber to the channel. Now you have more access. You're not on the outer ring. And then you go one ring further, you're now paying for every comment that you submit. You are, and each contract that you agree to has to give you something more. And in this case, it's signal. You're exchanging money, you're exchanging time, you're exchanging the effort to get this identity for higher signal. That's what you're exchanging for. A digital conference with rings of contracts that allow people to engage more and more and more, but they have to give something up. They have to give up time, they have to give up money to get what they want.
That's a good recipe. Wide-ranging low signal, narrower high signal, and finally member of the network.
Yeah.
You know, or some, and with other rings in between. I like your metaphor. But what does the low signal mass produced content look like in a way that isn't work? Because the problem with this is that what we're doing is, and you rightfully asked at the beginning, where's the money?
Yeah.
There is no money until maybe the very last step, and even then, most of the value is now you have a network.
Yeah.
And now you have a way to rope people in, rope is the wrong way, to invite people in so that they can participate.
What are you selling? What are you selling that people will buy right now? And that could be webinars or sessions, like essentially group video calls on Zoom that people pay to join. You pay for the link essentially.
Not a bad idea.
And what do you do? What do you discuss in those calls? Well, you do a 2-hour session on how to clean up your Gmail inbox. Like, that's what you sell that people might be willing to pay for. Is that the thing? Maybe not. But the point is, that's the end of the line. That's the end of the content line. It has to be something you're selling like that.
What I observe is the way things work currently is people join WhatsApp groups or Discord channels or invite-only forums of one sort or another. And half the people are just there for emotional product. So to say who they are, to say what they do, to get that feeling of being acknowledged. The other half, they meet people who are useful in their line of work. So for example, recently I was talking to a crypto exchange CEO, and he's part of several WhatsApp groups. It's mostly noise. He doesn't even read 95% of the messages, nor does anyone else. And there are arguments, and the people who should speak the least speak the most, because their time is the least valuable and everyone else is too busy. But every so often, he has a problem. He describes this problem in a post, and a couple of people will respond to it and maybe message him privately. And now he has a professional connection which is useful both to him and to that person. So that is what people are actually doing. Is that you can imagine each person is a ship, and there's a sea of noise, and they're sailing through it on all these invite-only WhatsApp groups, and every so often they make a connection, and that's just valuable enough to put up with the noise.
Yeah. And so are we trying to improve that experience?
Yes.
So that would be the outer ring that we're talking about,
Yes.
essentially. But I think you're right in saying this. That outer ring has to exist.
Yes.
If nothing else, to provide contrast to the inner rings as you go in.
But also to provide a minimum contract.
Mm.
Person enters, posts.
Yeah.
Oh, my message went through. No
Yeah.
one's reading it, or very few.
But it worked.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're essentially providing standard internet forum plus. We're now on top of the internet forum, something else emerges, something else unlocks, essentially. Are we still thinking of the first piece of content someone engages with is a tweet? Is that where it begins?
Twitter is no longer what it was.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to organically build a Twitter following.
Right.
Typically, as far as I can see, people bring in their reputation from elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then people on Twitter follow that person because of their pre-established reputation.
What other organic engagement strategy would you consider?
Short YouTube videos. I wouldn't even say shorts.
Okay,
I'd say short YouTube videos.
Right. So, but the plan here is to rely on YouTube's algorithm to distribute those shorts, and then have people engage.
I would say,
organically that
can
way.
we make the sort of content,
Yeah.
but also in the sense that we've been doing this with articles?
Yeah.
Can we create the sort of content that also might just be guides?
It might
Here's
be
how
what?
guides.
Okay. Yeah.
Like in a simple practical guide,
Yeah.
4 minutes, 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and that's something you can share with people,
Yeah.
or that people might share with each other, or that people might search up.
But then, so it should be a YouTube short, 45
Short
seconds.
video, I'm thinking. Short video.
Okay, but no. Imagine it's literally a short,
Okay.
one of those
Okay,
vertical
let's think
videos.
it's short.
Imagine it's that. How to add a spam filter to your Gmail inbox in 45 seconds. That's an example of a piece of content that could be presented that way. Is that the type of content that we would consider?
Well, this all begs the question which we've sort of all been forced to grapple with. What content is worth consuming? Freeman Dyson reckoned that in the year 2000, we flipped to a new situation where content of all kinds was cheaper to produce than to understand or process. So by default, the average piece of content is not worth consuming. It doesn't help you. It simply takes energy. The solution I found when writing articles was to write articles that I couldn't find anywhere else, that answer questions that I had. And this makes content engaging at the minimum to the person who produces it. I would favor all our content being at least engaging to the person who produced it. At least it solves a problem that they have. At least it answers a question they have.
But how do you find out what those questions are?
You have them. What problems do you have?
So you solve your own problems
Yes.
first.
And that's how you avoid audience capture. You avoid the problem of inauthenticity. And you avoid the problem of simply being another spammer. I think I listened to an episode between two podcasters once where they discussed and agreed on that it was incredibly difficult and draining to interview someone that you didn't want to, that you weren't interested in. To spend 2.5 hours asking, or an hour or whatever it is, asking someone about their life and business when you don't care is very difficult to do well. So Joe Rogan is explicit. He invites people he wants to talk to. That's how you use yourself as the filter for the noise.
Okay. Go on. Yeah, you want to...
I mean, it fulfills the simple requirement of art necessarily having to be at least partly narcissistic.
Yeah.
Which is, if you don't want to see it, why would anyone else want to?
Right.
My problem with making videos has been that I want to make them, but I'm not as much thinking, and maybe I should be thinking more explicitly, would I want to watch them?
Yeah.
Because I'm happy to make them, but again, that might be the simple narcissism of putting a video together and looking at myself and listening to myself and pretending that it's work. But if it's answering a question I have, then it's at least solving one person's issue and making something out of it that I can maybe use and maybe be useful as well.
I enjoy almost all my own content and have re-watched or reread it a lot.
Okay, that's that is narcissism. That is what that is. Oh, you got to defend yourself now.
Not at all. If you produce a high quality product on topics that you find engaging,
of course.
And all else seems drab and grey, it's simply recognition of quality.
Yeah. I agree that the looking in the mirror is the best view I get all day. It's true. Yeah.
How do we choose topics in a way that isn't audience capture?
Okay, so what's the problem you faced recently that you want to make a video about?
I'd like to make a video about how to build a company in Spain.
Ah.
I'd like to make a video.
Perfect.
I'd like to make a video where I walk myself through in video.
Yeah.
How Bitcoin works for a non-programmer.
Okay.
Because I wrote that into an article some years ago.
Right.
And I think that would be valuable content to consume.
Yeah.
If I ever needed a reminder.
Yes.
Here's a clear, well-explained, accurate description of what Bitcoin is.
Yes.
Those are two issues that I'm grappling with.
Those are really good ideas.
Yeah. I would watch a video of you grappling with how to make a product someone would pay for at the end of the line. So your conversation with this investor, I would find the takeaways from that conversation and the own process you've gone through to stomach those conclusions interesting to watch. I don't know. How do you make a product where people pay you at the end of the line?
Yes.
Maybe you don't know yet, but maybe you know more than you used to. I know it's not this, and I know it's not that, and I know I made a mistake there. That's content I would watch.
Yes.
Don't repeat my mistakes.
That's a really good idea.
Because
and honestly,
it's real.
that I know, I agree. That's actually a short video I could feasibly make.
I'd watch it.
Wow, that's such a good idea.
I mean,
That's actually a really good idea.
My excuse for making
I'm going to write this
videos.
down because this is basically my homework.
My excuse for making videos for the past few months
Yeah.
has been, well, I wrote something about it.
Yeah.
I might as well use it as camera practice and voice practice and presence practice.
Yeah.
And if I also make a good video about it that I can rewatch and people watch, win-win.
Let's do a trial run here where Nick and I grapple with a problem, which is how does Bitcoin die? So,
Alright.
so here's what I will propose.
Yeah.
Number one, no system lasts forever.
Yeah.
Entropy is our ultimate master.
Okay.
So, this system will end.
Yeah.
How? This is assuming no breakage is found in its design that leads to some overnight hack and it's all broken.
Yeah.
So assuming the system as designed continues.
Right.
How does it end?
Well, I think you could start very simply by saying what are the economics of the situation.
So miners.
The miners.
Yes.
The miners have to make money. Otherwise,
Yes.
they stop mining.
Yes.
They don't keep mining for the love of the game. They're not mining for the love of it. They're mining for the money they get.
Yes.
So that calculus has to remain positive. So, under what circumstances could you imagine that calculus being negative? It's going to be one of either one or two things. It's going to be massive electricity costs or other regulatory whatevers that prevent them from doing what they're doing. So it has to be energy costs.
Yeah.
Or the income that they get has to decrease.
Well, okay, so in a century, the block rewards will be 0 or very close.
Yeah.
So the guaranteed income from miner will go to 0. The theory, the hypothesis, is that the fees from transactions will be attractive enough.
Yeah.
But they're not guaranteed, and there's no guarantee that within a particular day anyone will make a transaction.
No.
Gold doesn't move around that much.
So, hold on one sec. It could be the case that there are no transactions in the transaction pool one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which means the miners aren't getting any income.
No.
Right. But it could be the case that transactions are so high value.
Exactly. That's the hypothesis.
A miner only gets one block every month.
But still,
But that's enough.
the game becomes far less guaranteed. The contract is fundamentally different
Yes.
with the system as a whole.
Right. So, a thought experiment. Consider maybe not 100 years in the future, but some period in the future, and you can imagine all transactions for a very high value industry, such as real estate, corporate real estate, or it could be something to do with mineral rights, or
We move the important information into
exactly.
being timestamped.
So other
by-
large assets, things that like require countries to come together to decide.
Yes.
Those sorts of assets or bits of those assets
Yes.
get moved around
That's possible.
through peanuts. So, what? So you could, well, what you would look at is like where does that happen now? What kind of markets exist for these very, very large
Yes,
things now?
This could happen, but
Yeah.
but I'm much more interested in the fact that it is guaranteed to end because no system is perfect.
Yeah.
And so here is a thing that I can see
Yeah.
which guarantees that it will end.
Yeah.
That is a question mark. Maybe it keeps going for another century,
Yeah.
maybe 2.
Right.
However, here are 2 guarantees.
Yep.
One is that increasingly the space of addresses that hold Bitcoin will increase because there will be some addresses that hold a small enough amount that it's not worth using that within a transaction, especially as a transaction fee heads higher.
Right.
So that the cost of those bytes in the transaction is greater than the amount of Bitcoin in the address. So
Yes.
it just stays where it is. It
Yes.
becomes functionally useless.
Isn't that true of the majority now?
No, I don't believe so.
Or a large chunk,
There's-
maybe 30%.
There are many.
Yeah.
So you have this, I would say, ever-increasing off-flow
Yeah.
into unusable Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Stuff that is essentially it's gold left in the desert.
Yes.
Underneath a rock. The second factor is increasing loss. So no matter how many backups you have,
Yeah.
at some point enough people will die at the same time that a particular key is lost.
Yep.
Or access to it is lost. No one remembers how to get to it.
Yep.
It's hidden, it's transposed, something.
Yeah.
As a result, there will be a continual, again, an offlow into lost Bitcoin.
Yep.
These 2 factors to me guarantee that eventually the system will no longer have enough usable units
Yeah.
to continue.
Yeah.
Therefore, it will be replaced by another system.
Could you estimate the rate of attrition? So the rate
Yes.
at which Bitcoin becomes inaccessible.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
don't know when a key is lost.
Although-
but how can you measure like a proxy for that?
Well, it's only 15 years old. That's right.
Yeah.
And therefore, we haven't even had a human lifetime.
No.
So we're going to have an immense cull as soon as the previous generation dies.
Yeah.
So I pictured once what would happen. I think at minimum someone starts a new chain, exactly the same, and it's a silver because it's not really worth using, but it's more accessible because the transaction fees are lower and there's a guaranteed reward.
Yeah.
And so bit by bit it displaces the old system.
Yeah.
So I think that's the default outcome.
Yeah.
The next outcome is you start to think about, okay, if you were starting from scratch, knowing what we know, what would you change?
Yeah.
And one thing you might change is if there's little bits of Bitcoin left in addresses that are too small, you might put a timer on them and they get reabsorbed.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yes. This is very relevant to a discussion that's been reignited in the United States about the penny, getting rid of the penny. But I found this goes down a rabbit hole that is quite interesting. The first thing is that you can ask a question: how much extra by rounding? So Canada got rid of its penny, I think like 10 or 15 years ago. And the question is, they've rounded all their values to the nearest 5 cents. The question is, how much extra money, because they rounded up, how much extra money did Canadians spend because of this rounding? Yeah. And turns out about $3 million a year, which is nothing. But it's interesting that you could sort of like count it that way. And the really fascinating thing is, the calculus for getting rid of the penny is a penny costs about 3.7 cents to make.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. But, but here's the thing. This is where the slippery slope begins. Because if you get rid of the penny, then you look at the nickel. You look at the 5-cent coin. The calculus for the nickel is even worse. It costs like, I can't remember what it was, almost like 20 cents. No, you can't quote me on that because I can't remember what it is. But the calculus for the nickel is even worse. And then you go, okay, we got rid of the nickel. And then it turns out, if you look at the dime, the calculus for the dime isn't very good either. And then you keep going and going and going and going. It's like, cash actually costs quite a lot of money to maintain as a thing. And then you start going, actually, there's a huge amount of the population that's still dependent on cash. Yes. And you can't get rid of that. So the question is, like, do you even begin? It's a slippery, it's like, I want to chop it off because it's a cost. But then you start chopping off important things, and it's like, oh no.
In that sense, it doesn't seem like as much as a cost as it seems a price that you're paying for a product.
Yeah.
Like cash is a leg on which a financial system stands on.
Yes. That's a very good way of putting it. It's no longer a cost; it's a price. You're paying the price to keep a certain portion of your economy alive. And fair enough. There you go. Like, so what if the majority of pennies get thrown under sofa cushions or down drains or whatever, because that's where most of them end up. Pennies once spent will never be spent again. So you're essentially throwing copper down a drain. That's what you're doing. But maybe that price is something you have to pay.
I think of money as something that cultures do, like in the way that some cultures have certain dances. The Scots have tossing the caber, the Germans wear lederhosen, the Russians make vodka, and money is the same thing. So it turns out that some cultures like to dig up copper, make it into very small circles, and then eventually put those circles in hard-to-reach places. But it's a cultural practice.
What was even spicier is I watched a video by the Wall Street Journal on this topic, and the person they had on as sort of like an advocate for the penny. It turns out, undisclosed in the video, the organization that backs him, copper, no, zinc, close, zinc, because actually the majority of a penny, about 97% of the penny, is zinc, not copper. It's only copper. So
think of the pennies.
Exactly, think of the pennies. However, he did make some good points. But it was, is that notable that it was undisclosed in the video who his backers were? I don't know. It was a funny thing.
I would take it as a poignant metaphor for most media discourse. It turns out he's backed by the Zinc Corporation.
Yes.
All right. Do you guys want another?
Yeah.
Sure.